Yay!
Okay, wonderful. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, great. And they cannot see you, but I have a workaround. So what I will do, I'm going, because I have my phone against the computer. I'm going to Instagram on computer. I'm just gonna join as I will just watch it from there. So I'll be able to hear you from the phone. Yeah. Plan Bs, getting used to Plan Bs is just how it's what life is all about, right?
100%.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Oh my God, I can see both of you now. It's so funny, but it's a little bit delayed, but it's totally okay. All right. So let me make sure that I'm pronouncing your names correctly. So Jamie Sabot and Jen Weare. Is that correct?
Correct.
Not correct.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay, great. So yeah, this is the first time I'm hosting two people at the same time. So to my great pleasure, and I'm just letting the audience know, because people are joining us all the time, that this is a live. I'm Faik Bouhrik, the founder of Vegius, and Jen Weare and Jamie Sabot from Lily's Place, a lovely sanctuary in Canada that I had the pleasure of crossing paths with, and they have graciously given us some of their precious time this morning so that we could talk about the journey, the sanctuary, and hear a little bit more directly from them. So guys, tell me, so how did you meet each other? Was it in the context of the sanctuary? Was it prior to that? So how did it come about?
I think I'll let Jen tell that story.
Yeah, it was actually back in Ontario, and I had been volunteering in another sanctuary, but it was like a pretty big hike to get there. So I was trying to find something that was closer, and I stumbled across Lily's Place that happened to be only 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes from my house. And I was like, what is this place? So I had reached out to them to see. And at that point, Lily's Place was very small, micro sanctuary, didn't have visitors, that kind of thing. And so reached out, and I was like, well, I'd like to do a fundraiser for you. And at that time I had very long hair. This was all right before COVID. Was it during COVID? I don't even remember.
Just before.
Just before. And it's like, I'd like to do a fundraiser for you. And so I was dying to cut my hair. So I ended up shaving my head to raise money for Lily's Place. And so that kind of started off the whole relationship there. And then because we were so close, I started volunteering on a weekly basis. Every Friday morning I would come out and clean sheep house or clean up chicken poop. And then it just kind of grew from there. And we realized we had a lot in common and became great friends. And now years later, here we are, moved out to the east coast of Canada. And we're not so close anymore distance-wise, but definitely lots going on with the sanctuary compared to back then.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's really beautiful, very, very beautiful, very inspiring, and so let's now then backtrack a little bit. So Jamie, how did you start the sanctuary, and tell us the moment you became vegan to the moment that you decided, okay, sanctuary is the way to go. Usually, sometimes I'm very surprised so far by the stories I have been hearing about how quickly that happens. So sometimes it's a journey, like somebody would go volunteer at the sanctuary, but there are other times where people become the moment that connection happens and they become animal rights activists. Vegan and animal rights activists start in the sanctuary. Sometimes it doesn't seem to take long. So for you, under which category do you fall? Or you have your own category, perhaps your own story we would love to hear.
Yeah. Like most things in my life, it was a long, slow, winding road that is hard to put into one complete story with, beginning, middle, and end. But the long and short of it was that I was always in kind of the animal rescue world. My career led me into the SPCA. So I was working with a lot of small animals, dogs, cats, but I spent my summers at my grandparents' cattle farm. So I was kind of around farm animals occasionally. And when I was in college, I got introduced to the idea of veganism, and that there was a world more for to protect more animals than just the small animal rescue world kind of, entailed. So I thought back, this makes a lot of sense to me based on kind of my upbringing and what I saw during my summers. So then I moved around in the SPCA with a few different roles, and one of them was placing animals. And the hardest animals to place were farm animals. So during my outreach trying to place farm animals, I kind of got an earful from, sanctuaries and farm rescues that were like, there is not enough of us. We're full all the time kind of thing. So then I started volunteering at a local farm animal rescue that's been around for over 2 decades now, and kind of got my feet wet there. So anyways, long and short, when I went from the city to the country, it was just a natural progression. Yep, it's time to bring in some farm animals that need a home, and it grew from there.
So Jen spoke about the sanctuary being a micro sanctuary at the time. So I'm assuming now what it is. I know that it is. So then it became incorporated as a nonprofit after that. Is that correct?
After we moved to the Maritimes, yeah, it became incorporated.
Oh.
Yeah.
How many animals do you have now?
About 30. So still small by some sanctuary standards, but enough. Enough for us at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, even one, because these are individuals usually coming from very intense abuse and exploitation situations, so they require a lot of support, physical, emotional. So 30 is plenty, and in fact, for me personally, I started this project to try to find a way to be able to support sanctuaries a little bit more effectively. I mean, effectively in the sense that business supports them, so that they can do the other very vital work that they do, which is education. Because you can only, 330, 300, 3,000, 3 million, it doesn't matter what the number is, considering the colossal industrial scale of animal farming. The real effective answer, of course, caring for animals is extremely important, but there is the other part, which is education, which is sort of preemptively dealing with it. And I think this is a very, very beautiful thing about sanctuaries, and something hopefully that through proper support that they can do more and more in the future. So, Jamie, one thing for you and for Jan also. So I know that volunteers as well as donations and memberships are very, very vital for sanctuaries. So how do you go about that and securing that for Lily's Place? So do you have volunteers come visit? Can people volunteer and help you remotely? What kinds of things that the volunteer have been helping with, and how are you staying afloat? I know it has been really hard. Sanctuaries have been hit really hard recently with this inflation, and yeah. So how are you keeping up?
Well,
it's a fine line.
Yeah, it's a fine line. I think part of that is working from a responsible rescue model. So making sure we're not exceeding our capacity, whether that's people power or finances. And the sanctuary model, your expenses are going to go up every year, right? It's not like a business where you hope your profits go up, but your expenses don't go up quite, the same way. And I'm a small business owner, so I look at this like we're in the business of saving animals. So how are we going to do that when it's not a profit model, it's a non-profit model? But how do we make sure we have revenue, money, donations to provide a program, and our program is caring for animals. So last year we focused on monthly sponsorships, because they are the single best way to support the animals here and give us a picture of what our capacity is financially.
And another, when Jamie talks about responsible sanctuary and intakes and things like that, it's not just the animals, but it's also the amount of people that are involved. So Jamie and her partner Tim are the founders, and they live at the sanctuary. So we don't have employees. We don't have paid people to look after the animals. So at this point in time, it's Jamie and Tim who both work their own full-time jobs, and then our volunteers who come out. So I know you're asking about volunteers, and it's a huge thing. Yes, 100% we need funds all of the time. So those monthly sponsors make a huge difference, even if it's $10 or $20 a month. But then the volunteers who, whether they're in person, I know we've had a number of people who've been able to come out now regularly in person, which makes a big difference, because you just need so many people to care for so many animals. And the more animals that you bring on, the more people then you need to bring on to care for those, because you can only do so much as a human. But then we do have a whole kind of group of virtual volunteers that we're trying to expand as well. So things like outreach. So reaching out to people or businesses, people who are interested in what we're doing and who can maybe help us with what we're trying to do, or even simple things as like marketing, newsletters, going to local events with a table and representing Lily's Place. So there's all kinds of, whether you want to be in person or behind a computer, because there's always emails that have to be answered. There's always applications that have to be done, all of those things that there's only a few of us regularly who can do. So the more we can get on board with that, then the bigger that the sanctuary can get too.
Yeah. As the animals and the animal care increases, the behind the scenes volunteers that work on the marketing, the outreach, you know, the bringing in the donations increases too. So it just decreases across the board.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny because I'm looking sideways because I'm looking at my screen on the computer, because I cannot see on my phone, and it's funny. It's a little bit delayed sometimes. Jen, you talking and I'm hearing Jamie and vice versa. So my mind is trying to coordinate the computer as well as that, as the delay. So please bear with me. Usually I'm a little bit after that, following to the second. I'm a little bit 1 second delayed. So please bear with me. So because I personally have actually joined a few sanctuaries that I have invited as a member, and it's incredibly rewarding. And in fact, there are a few more sanctuaries that I have interviewed recently, and I told them that I'll be joining in early 2023, January, February, and I would love to be able to do that for you as well, guys. I mean, it probably may be something very symbolic, as little as $10, because at the moment, so for me, it doesn't. I mean, yes. I mean, because Vegius is still growing, still taking resources, but down the road, I would like, in addition, to say these are just small tokens of appreciation, and the real difference, I hope, is going to come through Vegius when it really assumes its full potential. But still, I know that how important that is to you, and for people to just come through for you in that way, and stand with you, and it's something I would love to do for you guys. If not this month, next month, because there are things I think it would be doable at that point, and I would love to join you as a monthly member, as I said. And I highly encourage everybody listening to us to please do the same thing. It's incredibly rewarding, and as I said, sanctuaries are incredibly vital organizations. And as you can hear, it's the same. So this is a theme that has been coming up. So I'll tell you something, for you, Jamie and Jen, and for our people listening to us, either live or on the recording, it really is, to me, it's a theme. So usually female, highly empathetic, highly sensitive, highly resourceful, very caring, and very self-effacing, and will do anything for the animals. I mean, so it's and when I actually look and I see the income of sanctuary founders, when I average them, the numbers are actually negative, because quite a few of them are actually spending their own money into the sanctuary. It's not only they're not getting money, they are actually put in their own money to keep the sanctuaries running. So they are it's somebody working full time, and they spending quite a bit of that money into the sanctuary. And considering where the vegan revolution is and how it is growing, and it's just this absurdity. The more I see it, the more it sort of makes me determined to try to do my absolute best to try to, in some small way, try to mitigate it. And that was the Vegius. That's how we introduced it. So I really hope that could start to be the difference for sanctuaries in this year. But certainly we'll keep you updated.
I'm glad you pointed that out. Sorry to cut you off, but I am glad you pointed that out, because one of the things that we hear the most, or I see the comments the most, is, I wish I could win the lottery and then I could do what you're doing. It's like, nobody won the lottery. We just figured it out, We just did what we could. We started with 5 chickens, and that's, just grew from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we will be talking about this, in just a second, because I really would love to hear your feedback about that, because it is a colossal commitment. It is, and that's what I was exactly describing, the kind of person I have been running into in this journey. It's so funny. I'm talking, but then my image on the is not, and then my mind is confused. Am I talking or am I not? So I will try to do it a little bit more strategically so that I don't. So please tell us a little bit about your day, considering that you work a full-time job. So every day, how does a typical day looks for you? And then also for you, Jen, so both of you. So Jamie's going to tell us for her, from the point of view of the running the sanctuary directly. And for you, Jen, also being involved in the sanctuary, how does that look like on a daily basis or on a weekly basis? Yeah,
just about every day is it's different, but the routine is the same. So from the time I get up till about 11 or 12, animal care. Unless we have extra volunteers here, it's either myself or Tim out there every morning. And then if we have a volunteer, then one of us can get started on our regular jobs early. So today I was blessed that I got to just stay inside, and I'll go out to the barn this evening. But so then in between, so from noon till dusk, which changes all year round around here, but noon to dusk, I work on my regular job, and then dusk for 2 to 3 hours, we're in the barn again. So that's 7 days a week. That's what it is, because that's the only way to fit in the full-time hours, right? Is that way? Yeah.
Yeah, and since we moved to the Maritimes, Jamie and I both moved to the East Coast around the same time. Unfortunately, we weren't able to land in the same province. We tried, but it didn't quite happen. So as far as I used to be there on a weekly basis, helping out in person. Now that is a remote thing that I do. I do make a couple trips a year to the sanctuary to help out. And when I'm there, it's not a holiday. I'm shoveling, cleaning, we're planning, we're doing whatever. But for me, I've got kids at home, so I'm doing stuff when I get up before the kids are going to school, get them off to school. I will work my job. Luckily enough, I work from home, but in between there, it will be responding to Lily's Place emails, dealing with their social media. This morning I was doing a sort of a pre-approval for a grant application. And then, just trying to do as much behind the scenes as I can from here. It's hard when you're not in person. There's obviously things that would be easier handled locally. But it's for me, it's either research or computer work, or it's just finding those people who can help us achieve our goals for this year. So it doesn't look like anything fancy, but it's time consuming, especially when you look at grant applications or having to read through all kinds of documentation, try and figure out if it's what you need or what you don't need. It just eats up a lot of time, but in a good way, because it's a good reason.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And those things behind the scenes are incredibly critical for the smooth operation of the sanctuary and its continuation. So it doesn't surprise me that they are time consuming. Yeah. And and oh, again, it's so funny. I'm talking, and then you're still catching up. I don't want to cut you, but so sorry. Yeah, it's usually when I can see the person directly, it's a little bit easier. So because now there's that one extra element. So that's the only thing why I'm a little bit hesitant to speak right after you are done. It's
Okay.
because, as I said, I'm coordinating with the images that are catching up. So could you guys please tell me something? So, since you started the sanctuary or you got involved in the sanctuary, what are some of the most inspiring moments you have had? And some of the most inspiring lessons that animals have taught you? And also, what are some of the hardest things you, as a sanctuary founder and somebody who also is on the board of a sanctuary, that you find the hardest to deal with?
Oh, that's so hard.
Let's start with the hard stuff first.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and on a happy note.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way. Because I don't want to talk about it much. Because the hardest thing is death. That's the hardest thing. Not being able to rent it, seeing it coming is bad. When there's nothing more we can do, that's bad. It's also bad when you find them when you thought they were getting better, and that wasn't the case.
And I think for me not being there, I'm not going to say it's worse because it's not, but not being able to be there to help support my friend either or support the other animals is hard. It's really hard to do that from a distance.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard on us, and then it's hard seeing the animals, and then there's a third wave of telling all the people who knew them through social media or volunteers, and then it's another grieving process, right? So, and that's part of sanctuary, because we get animals that, they're gonna live out their lives here. For some, that's very short. For some, that's very long. But either way, it's hard.
It sucks all of the time. It's like when you have pets, right? You might have one for 10 or 15 years, then they pass away, and then another one. But sanctuary, when you're dealing with so many animals and so many animals that have been through a lot, that it happens more than anybody cares to want to deal with, and it's something that is sort of like the dark side of sanctuary. That's the not nice part of it.
Yeah, a sanctuary founder once said to me, "It's everybody's dream that becomes the nightmare, right? Because it's the highs and the lows, and it's grief, more grief than a lot of people ever deal with. For when they're doing a good cause type of thing, a passion project sort of idea. So, and the reason I left the SPCA in the first place was compassion fatigue. So now, where I'm at now, I left that world for over 10 years, and I'm in a sanctuary model now, but it's like, we gotta be careful, we gotta make sure that the people here are taken care of, and their mental health is okay, because if that's not okay with us, then everything else suffers too.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And the things I find the most inspiring that you learn from animals?
I think at least for me, is when you get to spend time with the animals. Up until I started volunteering with sanctuaries, I'd never really been around farm animals outside of like a petting zoo. Like I didn't grow up on a farm or that kind of thing, so not a whole lot of experience. But spending time at Lily's place, I think one of the most inspiring things was getting to know the animals as individuals and how unique and funny and caring and lovely each single one of them are. Like, you don't think that like roosters have their own personalities, or like a sheep is going to be your friend, but man, I talk to those animals like they're people, and they come up and greet you. And we talk about Sid all the time. He's one of the sheeps at Lily's place, and he's like a Walmart greeter. he remembers me now, even when I'm only there like every 6 months, and he comes running up to me, waiting for his pets. He's just like a big dog. And I think those things, when you get to spend that time with them, and then you really truly see them as an individual, and I think it just solidifies more, like, how can you not give them a life and a home and show them care and compassion like you would any other animal, because they're no different than your dog or your cat. And they're lovely. I would 100% have a pet chicken in my house. My husband and my dogs and cats are like, they're just, there's no, those lines are gone. Like, there's no borders between this is a pet and this is not a pet. They're all wonderful, unique creatures. And I think that's one of the most inspiring things, is just getting to know them as individuals.
And I think one of the most inspiring things last year was that we went out to rescue roosters, 4 roosters that had been dumped in the woods, because a community member asked us to help. And we didn't have a place for the roosters. We thought, okay, they can have shelter here for a couple nights, and then we need to find them a home. And a home was lined up, but it didn't end up being a home that was adequate for their needs. So it was like, now what are we going to do with these guys, right? And a lot of people cared about them, right? They were dumped individuals that the person who dumped them thought they were trash. And yeah, the community came together. There was a lot of donations came in for them to make sure that they had a home here. And then we got a substantial grant, the biggest grant we have ever gotten, to build them permanent residence here.
Oh, that's
which is
lovely.
Just like, whoo, when the people come together, when other people are crappy, like, that's the really inspiring stuff. Right? It reminds you that there is good people out there. Yes, somebody thought they were trash, but a whole lot of people did not.
Wow, that is very, very touching to hear that something as sad as that shows you actually the goodness in people and the community coming together. And the other thing that also Jen spoke about individuality, and I think this is what is something that is so critical in the work of sanctuaries, is that there is that opportunity to bring in people, or to educate people. People, to me, the more I look into history, the more I become convinced that, well, people knew animals. Not just knew animals. I mean, if you look back at the Babylonians and the Egyptians, and, well, yes, they consumed animals. At the same time, not all the time, and not just that, they viewed them as these sort of mystical creatures from another realm. And that's why you see all these totems, and you see a god half human and the animal head. So it's there was this animal mystery at the heart of civilization. And I think something has really changed about people's attitudes about animals. And the last century in particular, where animals, particularly with the advance of this industrial scale animal farming, where animals are reduced into complete objects. And I just have a feeling that sanctuaries are really great places to sort of reintroduce this sort of sacredness of life. You reteach people sacredness of life. And well, if people do not have any chance to interact with farmed animals, well, there is no that opportunity for that to be reignited. And then, like Jen was saying, you see them as, there's no difference between the pets, not just the pets. You even throw her husband in the mix, which is absolutely makes complete sense. Individual is an individual. Of course, we have different relationships to the individuals around us, and so do the animals. So I find that particular thing very vital. And the other also, about the painful stuff. Well, again, because as I was saying earlier, the profile of the people who gravitate towards this sanctuary work, usually, I mean, in my experience, it has been vast, overwhelming majority are female. For some reason, I mean, I'm trying to figure it out. The majority of the celebrities, the vegan celebrities, they appear in and talking, and they are male, but the majority of them are. But then the ones at the grassroots level really doing the work and changing hearts and minds are actually mostly women. Very empathetic, very sensitive, very committed, and you guys are the first aid workers in a war. So 10,000 war that we have waged on the animal kingdom. You guys are the first aid workers, and you are not some kind of a third party. You are the aid workers, but species-wise, you belong to the Agressian tribe. That must be incredibly hard. It's one thing to be two tribes are fighting and you go in and help. It's another thing where your tribe is actually the aggressor, and then you go to the front line and you try to rescue, and then you try to educate your tribe about the need to actually move away from that kind of behavior. So the fact that there is a that kind of psychological price and that kind of psychological hardship, it does not surprise me. And I just want to add, I'm bringing this up because it's extremely important. When in the show I try to communicate to people the kind of commitment this is. It's not just somebody waking up, taking cute pictures with animals. That's always fun, and then doing a couple of things and then just going on vacation after that. It's real. These are real people who are committing to real cause, and it's 24/7, 365, and it's a level of commitment. I personally, as much as I love animals and as much as I'm trying to do, that kind of commitment is even outside of my own league, and I have to admit that. So,
well, yeah, if you ask Jane how many vacations she's had since they started their sanctuary, I know it's zero. Yes, that was only this year.
Yeah.
Because we had enough volunteers to run the sanctuary with you being gone for like 48 hours total.
Yeah. And
Wow.
Tim had to stay here, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. Tim and I.
So you went.
I think we haven't been off the property together, except to take the summer student out for lunch when she was done her summer placement. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I was talking to a sanctuary founder recently. She's from Canada also. She was not able to attend her daughter's wedding in a foreign country because she can't leave the animals.
No.
She can't.
Yeah.
So yeah. Very, and that's why the more I hear the stories, the more it gives me inspiration, and I hope it gives other people inspiration as well. So now talking about the future. So what future plans do you have for the sanctuary? Are there any small projects, big projects? And also you have mentioned grants. Are there any grants available for sanctuaries to start educational centers or is it mostly dedicated towards supporting animals? And also when we hear grants, probably these are small, not all, when people hear a grant, most of them are not $500,000 grants. I think it may be a few $1,000s, if that. So we would love to hear more about the kind of projects that you have for the sanctuary in the near future.
Jen can speak to projects and I'll speak to grants.
Sure.
Okay.
So projects coming up for 2024, we did right at the end of last year. Jamie mentioned we got a grant for the Rooster House. So because it's winter in New Brunswick, nothing can happen until the weather changes. So all of that will be planned out. So that will be built in the spring. We also received funding to expand the pasture area for our grazing animals, so our sheep and our goats. So again, we can't do anything till the spring. So that will be new expanded fencing, which will not only increase the areas they can graze, but also cuts down on our feed bill because we have to buy hay. So if the sheep and goats can graze a lot more, then we don't have to purchase as much hay. Plus, down the road, when we have the ability to take in more animals, we'll have more space to put them on the grass. For 2024, we also we're going to be raising funds for dividers for our barn and pastured areas. Anyone who's kind of followed us may know we have a couple mobility challenge sheep. They have prosthetics. They do great, but they have to be separated from the other sheep and other animals who are fully mobile and boisterous so that they don't get hurt. So if we can get those dividers in, it allows like little Rosie, who is our little lamb, for her to leave her stall and go outside on her own without having to be supervised or worry about anybody knocking her over or her getting hurt. So that'll be one of the projects coming up. We do want to expand as far as infrastructure goes, to hopefully get another barn/quarantine area so that we can provide services when it's like an urgent matter. We've had in the past calls out where like, can you take this animal right now? And because we didn't have space to do it, we couldn't take them. So we want to have a facility that will be like an emergency care where we can get them out of wherever they are that they need to leave and house them separately so they can be quarantined, get the proper medical care, all of that. But again, that's going to be a big sort of fundraising project to get that building built. At Lily's place, we have lots of land. Land is not an issue. We just don't have the building. So that'll be sort of the big goal, is being able to expand the infrastructure so we can expand capacity as well.
And the rooster house is, we got that grant too, because it will be an education center to debunk the myth of roosters, because they're seen as like these, vicious birds that nobody wants to keep, and that has not been our experience. So we're looking to paint roosters in a good light, and that that building that we'll have for them is going to be a great way to do that. Yeah. So, and then to your question about, are there grants for humane education and educational type programming? There is a lot of them. There's a lot of them. It's trying to piece together all of those grants in a way where we'll have somebody who can actually coordinate those programs, right? So with no paid employees, it's pretty hard. One of my roles at the SPCA was a humane educator, and that was funded by grants. But, it's like, okay, can we get enough funding then to employ somebody and that sort of thing? And a lot of grants also want to see that you already have something in place, and then they'll support that work to continue, right? So it's a tricky balance to have, what you need to get the funding to keep it going.
Well, and then there's a lot of grants too that both Jamie and I have come across where very few apply to farmed animal rescues.
Yes.
They apply to like cats, dogs, pets, small animals, those kind of things, but there's a lot that don't. And so it's really hard to find ones that will be applicable to a farmed animal rescue. If you're rescuing dogs or cats, there's a lot of funding out there, but unfortunately farmed animal sanctuaries have the least funding out of any type of animal sanctuary, because it's just not, people haven't made that connection yet. They're okay to support wildlife ones or pets, those kind of things, but they haven't quite shifted yet to the farmed animal portion.
Yeah. And when it comes to farm animals, a lot of the grants are, how are you going to reach up a national or international audience with this grant, which is understandable, but change happens at a grassroots level too. And we're in a really good position to change hearts and minds. Like you said, if people meet Sid and they go, I've never been around a sheep before. I didn't realize they were so sweet. And then they start to think, right? Then we can lead them into the conversation of, so the laws for animals are really messed up in this country. What you do to a dog is completely illegal. You can do that to a pig, a sheep, a goat, a chicken. And as long as you are profiting from that, and you're not doing it to just one chicken, but a lot of chickens, then it's completely legal, right? That doesn't match up. It doesn't make sense. And so we're here, we have to have that starting point of them considering these animals first as something other than, like you had said, an object. They need to start to see them as individuals. Then we can start talking about how, yeah, the law does not protect them like it does your dog.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there is a disconnect, of course. And if you just think about it, just a few decades ago, that's not a long time ago, where you can do to a black person what you cannot do to a white person. Or you can do like people, I mean, I grew up in Algeria, North Africa. That's a former French colony. What you can do to people outside of, England or France, that what you cannot do to people in England or in France or the United States. Or so I brought that up because I just want to remind people that's a very recent thing. So that kind of thinking is still around and is still with us. And in fact, I personally believe we did it to animals first, and then that was a spillover. What people do to people, it really is, by and large, it's a spillover from what we have convinced ourselves that we can do to animals. And so I just want to also to connect your point about why we created this project and invited you to be partners. Because initially, in fact, I even thought of it as to start it as a nonprofit, but that was much harder legally, as well as because of the the vision and what it can accomplish. Because I was talking about the kind of person, somebody like Jamie starting a sanctuary, which is a typical story for people being attracted to this line of work. They go to it because they care, and then these are aid workers. Yeah, we are waging war. Of course, somebody who cares is going to jump in and help. And then it becomes, as a financial commitment, it's incredibly hard. But then you're changing hearts and changing minds. Veganism is growing. And then on the other hand, we just bring in this sort of cold calculus of the market. And then that creates the abundance and wealth. It gets concentrated in the hands of very few people. And sometimes they've got nothing to do with veganism to start with. They have nothing to do with the ethos of veganism. It's just an economic opportunity. They jump in. And so I try to create this project and invite sanctuaries as partners so that to allow them to tap into this vegan revolution and allow that to power their operation, because I think they so richly deserve that. It's just how it should happen. So we just, we launched the app just recently, January 6th. We started the crowdfunding campaign. We went crowdfunding campaign with perks because, well, again, just the same thing like you. To be able to be eligible for crowdfunding, to put it in crowdfunding by equity and offer equity, to the community, grassroots, well, you would have to have raised this amount of money. And then, or you go to get, I also try to finance it through, loans from banks. Same thing. You would have to have many, many years of records. You have this, you have this, you have this. So, which is, to me, it's totally fine, because I still am very excited because we have some really exciting developments coming up. So they could help this grow a lot faster than it would with just the little means that I have and I could control, I could put into the project, because that way it's just going to go a little bit slower than it could. But still, I completely understand that the organizational constraints, and particularly when you have something and you try to explain it to these organizations, human education, they have their own metrics, and it's totally fine. It's totally understandable, and particularly for you in the nonprofit world. So there are nonprofits of all types, and then these are they have to make decisions. But that's what I said. That hopefully we get this going, we get this working, so that the burden, the financial burden, gets eased enough that you will be able to, let's say, just in one sanctuary, be able to allow them to just hire one person to do coordination for educational programs. Another sanctuary, you could have extra barns and things like that. That could be very decisive. And I personally believe absolutely the grassroots is the way to go. And people like you need that voice to be absolutely magnified 100 times over. So yeah.
Nonprofits typically, from what I see, they don't survive without the support of commerce and business people, and people who they can't be here, but they believe in the cause, and so they work it into what they're already doing, whether that's corporate giving or a model like yours. That's the way nonprofits survive, right? So.
Absolutely. Particularly, I think there should be this acknowledgement. Just because you have the resources and the tools to capitalize on a trend, but there is this complete disregard to the people who have made that trend possible in the first place. And then when you have business completely divorced from the ethos of a movement, you would have disconnect. effects, and then you would have you would be compounding the structural imbalances that are making it so much harder for people who deserve so much support. Makes absolutely no sense. So for one last thing, I'm just assuming, because I didn't start, because usually we have sanctuary founders, walk us in the premises, but because I know there is a big winter storm, I did not bring that up. I'm assuming is that the case, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's snowing right now.
Yeah. I was looking at the weather, and I was actually thinking about you, Beck. I mean, I know that you're in a very snowy part of the world. So I live in sunny California. So, but I looked up yeah. So Jamie and Jen, I just really grateful for this conversation today. And as I told you, I would love and I would be honored to join your family sanctuary as soon as that becomes, maybe I'm talking about as latest starting in February. Even with a small monthly donation, I encourage the members, please consider joining this beautiful mission. Donations, membership are vital for sanctuaries, but also they give you this very unique access, and you become part of a family that is bounded by compassion and love and hope, a lot of hope for the animals that they care for. But also we make a stand, even if we just show up that one time in the month, just say, hey, I see you and I'm here. And I think that is quite a bit of support. And there is also that handle, Lily Place Animal Sanctuary. Please follow them on social media, Instagram, as well as on Facebook, and share their posts, like their posts, interact with them, and please follow them on Instagram, as I said. And if you are not following us and following them, please follow us. So Jamie and Jen, do you have any final words for our listeners today?
I just want to thank you for giving us a platform to talk about what we're passionate about and to spread our reach. It can feel pretty lonely out here in rural New Brunswick, where we are definitely the minority in our thinking. So yeah, reaching out broadly is really important for our little operation here. So we thank you for the space and the time to talk freely and to get the word out about how special sanctuaries are.
And I just want to say thank you so much for letting us join you on your Instagram Live. And we're super excited that you are willing to donate anything to the sanctuary. And anybody watching, the same go. I know it's like you might be like, oh, $2, $5 isn't going to do anything. It does. Even like those likes, those comments, those shares. I know not everybody is in a position to hand over money, and that's okay. But if you can share the posts, like them, interact them, put it in front of someone who maybe has the means, it does a huge thing for the sanctuary, even though you might think it's not a big deal. So we're just excited to be able to spread reach and let people know that there's a little sanctuary in New Brunswick that's doing some pretty awesome stuff that we can't do without people like you.
Yeah. Absolutely, and we will do this again, hopefully in the spring or in the summer when we can meet with the animals, and also we can even do like I was thinking about a little bit later in the year, like an event where we invite sanctuaries from different countries, and all of us can meet and broadcast it, on social media, on YouTube, and have as many people as possible join us. And as I said, our work is really geared towards trying to drive the traffic, the awareness, and the financial and logistical support for sanctuaries, because we absolutely and firmly believe that they are the key to change. If there is a chance for humanity, I think attending Sanctuary University is very, very critical.
Yeah. I agree.
So thank you so much for your time, and thanks to the listeners who have tuned in today. So I was with Jen and Jamie from Lily's Place Sanctuary in Brunswick, Canada, and they told us about their lovely journey and about we talked about lots of things. So please, if you see in this just towards the end, please go back to the recording, which will be on the Vegius Instagram account, and please follow Vegius and see all the updates about the things we are doing. And we are doing our absolute best to provide these beautiful organizations and the very special kinds of humans that are around them the support and recognition that they deserve. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Bye, guys. Bye, Jamie.
Bye.
Bye, Dan. Bye. Bye. Very nice to meet you in person. Bye.
Bye-bye.